Hello, everybody. This is the read aloud of our text this week from My View. It starts on page 334 in your My View book. It's called The Secret of the Winter Count. And this is a piece of historical fiction. Now, the vocab this week that you have probably been working on, hopefully you've been working on for your weekly word work: drought, intricate, wavering, unbidden, and my personal favorite, snoozing. So we're just going to read this, and we will be referring to some of it as we explore how to know it's historical fiction, and we are also going to look at the theme of this text later this week. So, Chapter 1, New Friends. Emma looked at the shriveled huckleberry bushes. Not a berry clung to the withered branches. She'd wanted to gather a bucketful to cheer her parents, who were worried about the shortage of water. Her father said that 1886 would be the worst drought in Montana's history, and now their well was already dry, and a small stream near their cabin had to provide water for both the family and the cattle. And if I look at the picture here, I can see that it's a very dried bush. So one thing I do notice right away is the date. It's 1886, so that tells me that this story takes place in the past, right? In the distance, she spied the soaring canyon wall that reminded Emma of a curtain dropping from the sky, as though she'd never been there. She knew that's where the Blackfoot Indian village was. Emma thought for a moment. Her mother had said the people of the tribe knew where to find food on the land, and weren't huckleberries food? She'd asked the villagers where to find the tasty treats. As Emma walked into the Blackfoot village, she stared at all the strikingly decorated teepees. She was greeted by a dozen children, along with a tall man wearing a beautifully beaded vest and a hat with a black feather stuck in the band. His warm smile put her at ease. "Hello," she said politely. My name is Emma Arcan, and I live on the farm down in the valley. Do you know where I can find some huckleberries?" The children began running around her like playful foxes, and the man chuckled. "Nice to meet you, Emma Arcand. I am Starwalker, storyteller of my tribe, and I'm sorry, but there are no berries. There has been no rain, and without rain the berries do not grow. There is little food of any kind this year." One of the younger children ran up to Emma and stared at her. Starwalker shooed the little boy away, saying, "He does not mean to be rude, but with your dark skin and hair you do not look like the other white people from this area, and he is curious." "That is because I'm métis. My ancestry is mixed," Emma laughed. "My grandpa is French-Canadian and my grandma is Cree, and on my next birthday when I'm 12, we're going to visit them in Canada." Starwalker nodded. "I have many friends among the Cree people." She swung her empty bucket. "What does a storyteller do, Mr. Starwalker?" Emma couldn't imagine having the job of telling stories all day long. As I read, guys, I wonder whether I understand how Emma and the Blackfoot people are going to get along. I mean, when she walks up to the village, because the Blackfoot people face the same problem of having had no rain, but Emma cannot help them with that. "I speak the legends and history of our tribe to the young people," he replied, "which is how children learn the wisdom of the elders." Emma loved stories. "Could you tell me some of your stories?" "You're in luck," Starwalker said. "I'm about to share the history of our tribe with the people, and you are with the children, and you are welcome to join us." Emma brightened. "I'd like that." Starwalker showed Emma and the children an animal hide covered with drawings in an intricate spiral pattern. Guys, I find it kind of interesting or fascinating that Emma, even though she's 12? She feels confident enough to walk into this strange village and talk to this older person who looks kind of different from what she's accustomed to. In some stories I have read personally, settlers are kind of afraid of native people, and think about what we did to them when we talk about the social studies class. So I'm going to kind of take note of how different Emma is. This is called a winter count. Each of these pictures shows the most important event that happened to our tribe that year. He pointed to a drawing of tiny human figures circling a buffalo with a string of 10 horses extending outward in a line and ending at a small circle. This was many years ago when a terrible drought came and our tribe was saved by the little people. Starwalker pointed to another buffalo image, but this one showed 20 horses ending at the little circle. And here was the second time we were saved from a drought. The legend tells of the little people, nature spirits not much bigger than you, Emma, who told one of our children that he should go to the rock shaped like the sacred buffalo and walk 10 horse lengths from it to find water. The boy did as the little people instructed, found a pool of water waiting, and all our people were saved. During the next drought, another child was told to walk the same path from the Buffalo Rock, but this time 10 more horse lengths, 20 horse lengths total, and sure enough, there was water. Could the little people help with this drought? Emma asked hopefully. Starwalker shook his head sadly. None of our children has seen the little people. I wonder if the legend that Starwalker tells will have something to do with solving the problem of the drought Emma's family and the Blackfoot people are experiencing. Based on what I know about literature, I can make a prediction that it will probably come into play with Emma here. Chapter 2, Arithmetrix. When Emma arrived home, her parents were down by the stream where they were digging a big pit, and watching her parents work, Emma told the story of the winter count and how the little people saved the tribe. Old stories won't save us from this drought, but this dugout will, her father said as he swung the heavy pick, hitting the ground with a thunk. Fingers crossed, her mother said as she shoveled the loosened dirt out of the wide hole. Finally, they laid their tools on the top edge of the pit, climbed out of the hole, and walked to the stream. Once I unblock this trench, the stream will be diverted into the dugout and it will fill it to the brim. Then we'll have a mighty fine reserve of water. Her father moved some rocks and used his shovel to reroute the water. As they watched, a trickle ran from the stream and into the dugout. This is going to take all night to fill, her mother said, watching the thin thread of water. Let's have supper and hear more about Emma's day. She put an arm around her daughter. I hope you weren't bothering our neighbors, Em. No, Ma, I was good. Can I go back tomorrow? She wanted to hear more of Mr. Starwalker's stories. All of your arithmetic must be done. Schoolwork is important. So this chapter is called Arithmetrix. It kind of sounds like arithmetic, right? That's interesting. With no schoolhouse near the farm, it was up to Emma's mother to teach her all about reading, writing, and arithmetic. After I finish all the questions, then can I go? She sighed. They must not only be finished, her mother replied, laughing, but they must also be correct. That night, Emma worked very hard on her arithmetic, but the right answers didn't come easily. Addition was one thing, not so hard, but the multiplication table seemed particularly tricky to her. The wavering light from the coal oil lamp made the numbers on her slate tablet jump and wiggle, and frustrated with the work, Emma found herself doodling pictures she'd seen on the winter count. First she drew 10 horses in a row, and then added another group of 10 onto the line of 20. That's what the two pictures on the winter count had shown. The second chosen child had to walk 10 more horse lengths to find water in the second drought. 10 horses for the first drought, plus 10 horses for the second drought, she said to herself. It's like an arithmetic problem. 10 plus 10 equals 20. She wrote the equation below the drawings. It was arithmetic, but more fun because it used horses, and Emma liked horses. These paragraphs help confirm that this is historical fiction, guys. They're based on fact. I've read about pioneer families, and I've gone on field trips, which we would have gone to if we were in school this year, or, well, if we were allowed to go on field trips even, where there were no schools and children had to be taught, usually by their mothers, at home. It just confirms what we already knew. She was tired, too tired for more arithmetic, and, excusing herself, Emma kissed her parents goodnight and went to bed. They galloped into her dreams on silent hooves. Beautiful horses with the same markings painted on them as she'd seen on the village teepees. Emma sat astride on an impossibly tall buffalo as tiny human-like dancers circled the huge animal. The horses stood by the buffalo, but instead of staying in one big group like the horses she knew, the dream horses formed 2 groups of 10, then stepped out in single file to form one line. At the end of the line was a pool of cool, clear water. The horses were beautiful, with flowing manes and gentle brown eyes that seemed to know a secret. Emma woke with a start. The little people had come to her. There was something about the horses and the number 10. She fumbled in the dark as she made her way to the table, lit the lamp, and finding her slate, began to sketch her dream. As I read about her dream, guys, it makes me curious about how it fits into the plot of the story. Is this the prediction I made earlier coming true? She drew the buffalo and horses. The water was 10 horse lengths from the Buffalo Rock for the first drought, 10 more horse lengths for the second. Could it be? There was clearly a pattern in the drawing. One drought, 10 horses. Second drought, 10 horses. So this is the third drought. Just add 10 more horses, she whispered, jotting down a new equation. 10 plus 10 plus 10 equals 30. They would find water 30 horse lengths from the Buffalo Rock. Tomorrow she would ask Mr. Starwalker to take her to the special rock. Maybe dreams could come true. The next morning, Emma tried to explain her dream and the pattern of horse lengths from the winter count to her parents, but they were too preoccupied. I'm going to go ahead and take notes on Emma's thinking process on this page. She's drawing her dream as she thinks about the number 10. Then she recognizes the pattern in the dream. This is important, I think, because Emma is trying to solve the problem of the drought by interpreting the pattern. She's like an early mathematician. My, you're finding some imaginative ways to do your arithmetic, said her mother, taking her bonnet from the peg by the door. But with our dugout full, we'll have no water worries. Emma followed her parents as they hurried down to the dugout. But when they arrived, all they could do was stand and stare. The dugout was completely empty. Where did the water go? Emma asked, confused. Her father took off his hat and slapped his thigh with the brim. His disappointment was clear to Emma. Sometimes there are cracks under the soil, and the water drains back into the ground and the underground rivers. The level of the underground river has sunk farther than I'd thought. His face looked so tired that it made Emma sad, but then she saw that something else had happened. Pa, the stream stopped flowing! Emma ran to the stream bed, but there was no water. Emma looked from her mother's stricken face to her father's. She wanted to repeat the whole story of her dream, but now wasn't the time. Her father seemed to be holding something in, like a volcano just bubbling with hot lava and ready to explode. Emma and Ma had read about volcanoes in one of the few school books they had, a geography book. I'll be back later, she whispered and walked away. Now Mr. Starwalker had to take her to Buffalo Rock. These paragraphs help me understand more about Emma. It seems that she's determined. She does not give up easily. She's able to persuade Starwalker, I'm going to take notes about the way her parents act. I'm sorry, guys, I'm thinking of the wrong paragraphs here. When her parents act when the solution to the water has failed, their moods probably affect Emma, right? Which might affect events in the story. Chapter 3, Water Walking. When Emma got to the village, the storyteller was sitting cross-legged on the ground outside his teepee, studying the winter count. Excuse me, Mr. Starwalker, will you show me the Buffalo Rock? He looked up from the hide with its spiral drawings. Good morning, Emma. The Buffalo Rock is not something we share with outsiders. But you let me listen to your stories yesterday, she protested, and I am part Cree. Am I still an outsider? Please, Mr. Starwalker, it's important. He seemed to weigh this in his mind, and then his eyes twinkled, and he smiled. I'm sure your Cree grandmother would want me to show you. Together, Emma and Starwalker hiked into the high canyon and finally stopped in a clearing that opened out into a wide valley. Emma gasped. Standing before her was a giant buffalo. When she looked closer, she realized this was Buffalo Rock. It looked so real. How long is a horse? She asked, trying to figure out the distance from the rock to the first water hole. Starwalker took 3 slightly big steps. The distance looked to Emma to be about 8 feet. And she scrunched up her nose and she calculated how far from the Buffalo Rock 10 horses would be. 8 plus 8 plus 8 plus 8, 80. The first water was found 80 feet from here, she said. It was in this direction, said Starwalker, moving away from Big Boulder, down the hill into the valley. When they'd gone 80 feet, Emma stopped. There was a shallow depression in the ground. This matches the winter count. I can see where the water was. Now we need to walk another 10 horse lengths, another 80 feet to the second pool. They paced off 80 more feet down into the valley, and sure enough, there was an irregular pattern in the earth there, too. I think this drought's water will be found down there, Emma pointed down the hill. It's a pattern in the winter count. Every drought, the little people come to tell about 10 more horses. So it will be exactly 10 more horse lengths from here. Starwalker seemed about to say something, but instead followed Emma, who was taking big steps, the same size as Starwalker's, and carefully counting. 1, 2, 3. That's 1 horse. 1, 2, 3. That's the 10th horse, she smiled, then looked around and frowned. There was no pool of fresh, clear water waiting, only dry grass, seared brown by the scorching summer sun. Starwalker shook his head knowingly. The secrets of the winter count are sometimes hard to understand, but I thank you for trying. The answer will only be found when the little people speak. Starwalker's pretty patient with Emma, I think. He doesn't really think that the little people have spoken to Emma in her dreams, because he does not think the little people would visit anybody outside of the tribe, right? But the little people had been in her dream, and her addition had been correct. The water should have been here. Dejected, Emma racked her brain, examining each detail from her dream. She wanted to go home and talk it through with her parents, but she knew they had their own worries. Chapter 4, Counting Wild Horses. Emma again sat on the huge buffalo while the tiny dancers whirled around her, and in her dream, she smiled at the little people, who laughed and waved back. A long line of horses ran in single file from the buffalo to the edge of the giant winter count high they were all standing on, and the dream horses seemed to multiply as they galloped off the edge and up into a starry sky that swirled and pulsed with light. There were so many horses dancing in the stars. Emma sat up in her bed, the early dawn light making the walls of her room glow pink. The dream was so real. She'd seen the horses again, but many more than in her previous dream. They'd multiply in front of her eyes. Of course, Emma blurted out. The little people weren't wrong, but I was. It's a pattern, but it's not the one I thought it was. Earlier that day, she and Starwalker had paced off the horse's length. First 10 horse lengths from Buffalo Rock to the first pool location, then another 10 horse lengths to the second location. It had made sense that the water for this drought would be 10 more horse lengths farther down the hill. Just add 10 more. 10 plus 10 plus 10 equals 30. So why hadn't they found the third pool? Her mother always told her that the wonderful thing about numbers was that they never changed. 2 plus 2 was always 4. 4 divided by 2 was always 2. And 2 times 2 was always 4. Emma thought of her dream and remembered thinking that the horses had multiplied right in front of her eyes. Then it came to her. The winter count horses weren't increasing by adding 10 plus 10 to get 20. They were doubling, and that was multiplication. Multiplying 10 times 2 got 20. It was a multiplication pattern. She threw back the covers and ran into her parents' room. So, guys, it seems that Emma has found another interpretation for her dream. This builds my interest in the story and confirms my idea that she is determined and does not give up. I want to know if she's right this time. I know where the water is, she exclaimed excitedly. Her father rubbed the sleep from his eyes. Honey, the well is dry, the creek is dry, and the dugout is dry. I know how to find the water. I thought the pattern had to do with addition, but it is multiplication. 1 drought, 10 horse lengths. 2 droughts, twice the horse lengths in the first drought, so 10 times 2 equals 20. Now the third drought, twice that many horse lengths again, 20 times 2. The water will be found 20 times 2 for a total of 40 horse lengths this time. 20 times 2 equals 40. With the horse length being 8 feet, that means the water is 8 times 40. She scrunched up her nose as she did the calculation. 8 times 40 equals 320. 320 feet from Buffalo Rock. The little people in my dream were right. We have to tell Mr. Starwalker. Before her parents could say no, Emma continued pleading. I know I was wrong before, but I am right this time, and it will mean water for the tribe, and if there's enough, we could have some too. It was a big gamble, but she was sure she was right. At the village, Emma had told Starwalker of her dream and how by her calculations, the water was 320 feet from Buffalo Rock. This page has more details that support the idea that Emma is determined and confident. She persists even when her parents do not believe her. Together, her parents and Starwalker went to the ancient weathered stone. I'm right, you'll see. Laughing, Emma ran down the hill, sure she would find water. When her parents and Starwalker caught up, they found Emma shaking her head in disbelief. There was no water. She knelt and scooped up the dry dirt. This can't be. Her mother rested a hand on her shoulder. Let's go home, Em. No, Ma, it's here. Why would I have that second dream? She threw the dirt down, making a cloud of fine, powdery dust. For heaven's sake, Emma, her mother spoke in a stern voice, this is like the boy who cried wolf. Except instead of false wolves, you keep crying that there is water. There is no water. Emma wiped unbidden tears from her face. But at the end of the story, there were really wolves. She stood and then she looked around as though seeing the valley for the first time. I want to make sure I understand what Emma's mother means when she gets stern with Emma. Is she referring to the story about a boy who kept calling for the villagers to save him from the wolf? But there really was no wolf and he was just tricking them because he liked getting attention? Does Emma's mother thinks Emma just wants attention? Pa, remember the dugout? You said the ground was cracked and the water drained down to an underground river. Maybe we just have to dig. Hope sprang up as it became clear to her. Don't you see the water is here, beneath our feet in a river under the ground? We're farther down the hill, lower than where the water was found before. It's here, we just have to dig for it. Emma's father started to smile. Emma, your confidence is making me think it's worth a try. I can go fetch my tools from home, buckets, picks, and shovels. We have nothing to lose and a whole lot to gain. Starwalker stepped forward. I will help. I do not know about underground rivers, but I, too, see Emma's confidence. Emma and her mother sat down under a nearby tree to wait. They were actually snoozing when the clink of tools announced that the men had returned. The hot afternoon sun beat down on them mercilessly as Emma, her parents, and Starwalker worked, the men digging while Emma and her mother hauled the dirt away in wooden buckets. When they reached 6 feet, Emma noticed something odd. Look, the ground is different here. She pointed to one side of the hole. The pale, dry dirt did look different. It was darker. Her father and Star Walker dug furiously at that spot, and soon the dirt wasn't just darker, it was damp. I know what this needs, Emma's father winked at her, then took up his big pick and gave it a mighty swing. Kerthunk! It struck deep into the earth, and suddenly a jet of water gushed out of the ground. The water swirled and bubbled, filling the pit so quickly that Emma's father and Star Walker had to climb out or become wet. Emma's mother hugged her and shouted, "You did it! My wonderful daughter did it!" Star Walker reached down and scooped up a handful of water, offering it to Emma's father. "I am grateful, my people are grateful, and we are happy to share the water with your family. We will make another pool, and you can pasture your cattle by the pool, where they will have all the water they need." Emma's father stuck out his hand, shaking the storyteller's hand, and said, "And we will share our cattle with your people." Star Walker then turned to Emma and spoke. "It was the little people all along. They came to you in your dream, Emma, and you were clever enough to understand their message. You are the chosen child for this drought, and you have saved us all." Emma beamed. "I'll be happy to do my arithmetic from now on, because it turns out those tricky numbers are actually pretty darn useful." I'm going to note that even though Star Walker is an interesting character, Emma is the main character, because without her, the story would not have happened. She took initiative over and over to try and figure out how to solve the problem of finding water.